Good day, everyone. I am Miss Jane together with Miss Karen Evangelista and Miss Anna Jane Vallejos. So today we will be tackling about the best practices in reading, a 21st century skill update. For years, the field of reading education has been engaged in thinking about best practices. The term best practice is generally used to describe those instructional approaches and techniques that improves children's reading development. Their usefulness in improving children's motivation for learning to read, proficiency in reading, and their likelihood to become lifelong readers and writers. The National Reading Panel report in 2000, now over a decade old, was perhaps the most ambitious effort to synthesize this literature in reading, highlighting key best practices in the field. So they have identified a number of best practices. The first one is that the children need explicit instruction in vocabulary development. And second one is children need to develop knowledge through the text. And third one, rereading helps children to reinforce, deepen, and consolidate learning from reading. And the fourth one would be children's motivation to read is enhanced through digital text. And lastly, we have children need to pay attention to syntax to strengthen comprehension. So let us tackle about the best practice number 1. Children need explicit instruction in vocabulary development. As most reading professionals recognize, vocabulary plays a fundamental role in learning to read. As learners begin to read, they map the printed vocabulary encountered in text onto the oral language they bring to the task. As what is stated that understanding text therefore depends on being able to translate letter-sound correspondence into known words and comprehensible concepts, that is according to Camille 2004. Vocabulary or the labels that we use are merely tip of the iceberg. It makes a critical contribution to beginning readers transition from oral to written forms, and it is crucial to the comprehension process of the skilled readers. That is according to Beck and McCone 2007. Numerous studies, Stahl and Nagy 2006, have shown that the size of a student's word knowledge is strongly related to reading proficiency both in the primary and later grades. That is according to Cunningham and Stanovoch 1997. They enable children to build network connection between concepts that are meaningful and enduring their longer-term memory and are primary in comprehension development. They become the needs to be activated when the children trying to make sense of new ideas. Teaching words in meaningful semantic clusters enhances children reading development. And the second practice will be discussed by Ms. Anna Jane Vallejos.
Now, let us move on to the second best practice. Children need to develop knowledge through text. Early in years in the reading profession, we used to hear the common phrase, "I don't care what the child reads, as long as he or she reads." But now we know that this is a bit of a misnomer. We do care what children read. Having children engage in books of high quality introduces them to new words, ideas, and events outside of their daily experience. Even in the very early years, children gain tremendous storehouse of knowledge through their interaction with books. Related to the Common Core state standards, efforts to increase children's exposure to information text has now taken center stage. Studies suggest that the information genre may elicit more cognitively demanding teaching interactions around vocabulary than narrative. Pellegrini and his colleagues 1990, for example, reported significantly more utterances of high cognitive demand during expository text reading, with a 16%, compared with reading storybook text with a 4%. Similarly, children have been reported to use a greater numbers of initiations, book-relevant responses to questions, and text external response, example text to life, with expository text than storybook reading. Therefore, given the substantial differences in the accumulation of words among low and middle income children's vocabulary before school entry, information books could serve as a potential resource for promoting vocabulary development. Although we applaud the attention to information books, it would be wrong to discount the enormous amount of information that children acquire through narrative and storybooks as well, conveyed through rich characters, events, and plot sequences. These stories can often convey information in ways that children spark imagination and thought processes not possible through information text. Therefore, it is important to consider multiple genres and how these different genres may contribute to children's knowledge and desire to learn. So for the third practice, rereading helps children to reinforce, deepen, and consolidate learning from reading. More rigorous English language arts standards worldwide are vitalizing the long-standing but too often overlooked instructional technique for rereading. An integral part of the directed reading lesson, rereading typically occurred toward the end of the lesson for the purpose of extending comprehension of content. Students were guided to reread excerpts for new purposes, such as investigating a concept, generalizing, and thinking critically or creatively after reading and discussion. When Ms. Wilson says, for example, reread the section on eating disorders and based on the facts, decide which one is most dangerous. She sets a new purpose different from the established in the before reading phrase. Read to learn facts about eating disorders. Today's version of rereading is focused on intensive reading or close reading, which involves multiple readings for purposes of text analysis during and after reading. That was according to Shanahan 2012. This is no cursory return to the text for a different purpose, but rather a careful consideration of how the text works to communicate concepts, principles, themes, arguments, and so forth. Students reread to develop an aggressive, probing, analytical approach to what the text says and how it says it, the function of details, for example, or logical order and relationships in text organization. Two primary sources of evidence support the instructional technique of rereading as intensive reading. One is the research base, which shows the benefits of rereading for increasing comprehension. Research shows, for example, that rereading improves meta-comprehension accuracy. That is, the ability to monitor and assess one's own comprehension in learning new material, a critical strategy when reading to learn complex material. That was according to Rosen et al. 2000. The other is expert opinion based on scholarly thought and work. This is well illustrated in the classic text, How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler and Charles Van Deren, 1972, first published in 1940, in which the authors explain how to be a demanding reader who rereads to X-ray a text and determine the author's message. How to Read a Book is a teacher's manual. No teacher should be without when implementing rereading as close reading in best practice.
Children's motivation to read is enhanced through digital text. The impressive pace of technological growth and innovation over the past decades has provided unparalleled opportunities for information access, communication, and creativity. Many parents, teachers, and entire school system
have jumped at the chance to incorporate the latest array of technological tools and apps into children's schooling and play. The growing number of computer screen and tablets at school and in home means that the literacy experiences of children and adolescents, from storybooks to more complex narrative and informational text reading, are increasingly digital. Making information technology into integral part of children's lives from a young age enables them to access and become familiar with digitally interactive smart learning tools. In today's digital world, teaching children IT skills in their formative years helps them evolve along with information technology. Introducing digital tools, apps, and internet platforms to your students helps close the digital divide that hinders achievement. Advances in technology provide digital resources for education curriculums, which significantly contribute to digital literacy learning. When it comes to using technology for reading, teachers and administrators can use it in a variety of ways. Being able to explore different types of articles and content online allows for students to find reading materials they will be excited to read about. The digital world offers enormous benefits and advantages to everyone. According to Colaner 2012, make no mistakes about it. The transition from paper textbooks to digital textbooks is at full throttle. It is unstoppable and will advance at a swift pace into the immediate future. And according to Shamir and Korat 2009, Verhalen, Boss, and De Jong 2006, digital features like animation, hotspots, and audio facilitate comprehension in aid to recall of story plots and content information. According to Smith and Bass 2013, most promising are built-in tutors or virtual assistants that focus attention and provide on-the-spot teaching of reading skills, such as decoding and word meanings. Last practices. Children needs to pay attention to syntax to strengthen comprehension. According to Adams 2011, the wording of writing is learned through reading, even as its comprehension depends on the oral language the reader brings to the task. Reading is often thought as a hierarchy of skills, from processing of individual letters and associate sounds to word recognition, to text processing competences. Skilled comprehension requires fluent articulation of all these processes. Syntax skills help us understand how sentences work, the meanings behind word order, structure, and punctuation. By providing support for developing syntax skills, we can help readers understand increasingly complex texts. In conclusion, bringing together what is spoken in the text would be helpful to enhance reading skills. It is very important that we have different practices to be followed in order for us to become good readers.